Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see all of you. Every couple divides tasks between themselves. My wife and I call these departments. For instance, I found out that taking care of the yard is my department. She takes care of budgets and anything numbers related. And I answer tough questions that our kids ask. What happens to us when we die? She just looked at me and said, "That's your department, Rabbi." Anytime anything needs to be baked or a present needs to be wrapped, that's her department. She's got all the stuff for that. I take care of all things vehicle related. Vehicles are my department. Well, our minivan needed an oil change the other day, so guess who got to do that on his day off? Mazel tov to me. So I took it to the oil change place. And when I got there, they do that thing where they pull in, keep coming this way, over a bit. That's good. And then you have to drive over this terrifying pit of death. Okay, stop. Guys, I gotta tell you, I don't really like going to the oil change place. I'll tell you why. Because it's a place full of lies and deception. Even the name, Valvoline Instant Oil Change. I was almost there about an hour. Lies. Pure lies. I don't like it there because you can't just get your oil change there. They want to upsell you on everything. Filters, fluids, windshield wipers. While they're changing my oil, the moment they send the guy over to say, "Sir, we noticed something," I just want to put my finger on his lips and just go, "Shh." No more. So the technician comes over and he starts asking me the questions. What's the mileage? I tell him, and we start talking about my car. And he seems like a very nice guy. He's very chatty. He starts telling me about batteries and serpentine belts, but I'm a rabbi, and I don't know about that stuff, but I want to know about that stuff, so I just nod along, and I make a face like I know what he's talking about. And I say things like, "Oh, yeah." And then he pauses, and he says, "Hey, man, you want to hear something cool?" Now, time out for a second, everyone. I didn't know what to say to this. What do you say to this? If I'm being really honest, on my days off when I'm not rabbiing, I'm a little antisocial. I didn't really want to have a conversation with a random oil change dude. But on the other hand, he seemed like a nice guy who just needed someone to talk to. And I did kind of want to hear something cool. So I said, "Yeah, sure, what's cool?" And I kid you not, he leaned in and said in almost a whisper, he said, "My wife and I rented a cabin near Canyon Lake. And this weekend, we're going to take the boat out on the lake." That was it. That was the cool thing that the oil change guy told me. And I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said, "Yeah, man, that is cool." And I thought the conversation would end there. But it did not. That guy just kept talking about everything, about his life, about the universe. He just kept going, and I was trying not to be rude, and it was just so terrible. I think he mentioned the Civil War at some point. It was awful. And I think during the middle of it, my brain just shut off. It was its own defense mechanism. It couldn't take anymore. And it must have jumped back on track at some point during this lecture because the guy mentioned that I need 2 fluids replaced. And he said the golden words. He said, "You can wait in the lobby while we do it." And when he said that, I thought, that's it. That's my escape. So I said, yes, replace the fluids. And I just got the heck out of there, man. I dove out of my car straight into the lobby. Freedom! Guys, I got to tell you, it was so great in the lobby. It was so quiet. There was no random guy. I had a little coffee, checked some emails. It was great. It was my own little oasis at the oil change place. But then, dun, 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 he was back. I didn't even see him come in the door. He just appeared like a magician. And he started talking, and I was afraid it would be bad again. But then he had a clipboard with my receipt on it, and he said he was ready to take my money. And I was relieved. I thought, okay, maybe this might be the end of the oil change guy interaction. It wasn't. I gave him the card. This is all true, by the way. I gave him the card, and he looked at it, and he said, "Oh, you use Wells Fargo?" And when he said that, I braced for impact. Here we go again. And he just began. He said, "Yeah, my wife and I just opened an account with him." And I said, "Okay." And he kept going. He said, "You see, my grandparents died a couple years ago, and their estate has been trying to contact us. Apparently, they left us some money, but I've been throwing the statements away." And he just kept going and going. And I nodded and I smiled, but it went on. And then time just stopped for a while. And I was lost and drowning in a sea of words. Words from an oil change guy. And then, after about 94 years, he stopped talking and he said, quote, "Hey, you know, you're the first person I've talked to this week who hasn't cut me off." Go figure. This week, we read Parshat Eikev, a portion filled with Moses' urgent reminders to the Israelites. He tells the people, remember what God has done for you. Don't forget. Follow God's ways. And if you do, you will be blessed. It's a beautiful sentiment. But what's most fascinating is how our Parsha begins. It says, V'chaya Eikev tishme'un, which translates to, and if you obey these rules. Now, Rashi, our favorite medieval French rabbi, he notes that the word Eikev literally means a heel, like the one on the bottom of your foot. So he says these words hint at the commandments that people tread upon, or the commandments that people kind of walk all over or don't give the most attention to. These are the mitzvot, the commandments that seem small, almost even negligible. These are the mitzvot that he says are easy to ignore. In other words, Moshe is teaching us to pay attention to the little things. These little acts of intention create a meaningful, enduring relationship with God, because Hashem's love for us doesn't only have to be found in grand halakhic gestures, but also in the quiet, consistent acts of faith, humility, and integrity. These acts can be as simple as saying thank you, not just to God after a meal, but to the person who bags your groceries at H-E-B. These can be speaking kindly or even just refraining from gossip, or listening with full attention even when the story seems long or irrelevant. It was so irrelevant. Or even just giving someone the dignity of being heard. These actions don't make headlines. They don't always feel religious. But these are the mitzvot that are under our heel, the ones we risk stepping over. Moses tells the people it's not enough to keep the big commandments, if you want the full blessing of your covenant with God, it starts with Eikev tishme'un. If you listen, if you pay attention, even to the small mitzvot. Because real character isn't only revealed on the grand stage, it shows up in the waiting room of the oil change place. It shows up in how we speak to one another, and whether we greet the stranger in the hallway or call our parents or even forgive someone who doesn't realize that they've hurt us. Parshat Eikev isn't only about obedience, it's about relationship. God is saying, if you care about what I care about, even the smallest of things, I will care for you in return. And maybe, just maybe, that's what it means to live a life of faith, to act with presence, to see the holiness in everyday encounters, and to recognize that we don't have to be prophets to serve God. We can start by just being decent, attentive human beings. So let us not tread carelessly on the mitzvot under our heels. Let us not overlook the small gestures that ripple outward. Let us remember that even an oil change place can be sacred ground if we choose to listen. And boy, howdy did I listen. It seemed like this poor guy just wanted to vent. So, you know what I did? At some point, I just let him go. I surrendered myself to the mitzvah, and I just decided to let him get it out. I listened, and he just kept talking. Even after he processed my debit card, he did this thing where he processed it and then held it to his chest while he talked. Kept going, still going, holding me hostage in the lobby of the oil change place. And finally, another employee came into the room, and thankfully he told that guy that they needed him outside, so I was finally released from Valvoline prison. And I ran toward my car, and I got in and I revved the engine. I was just wanting to get out of there, but you can't just get out of the oil change place. They have to, right. But after that was done, I peeled out of the parking lot and I drove away. And I was driving home. I was thinking about that guy and his life and his problems. And I was happy that I was at least able to be a listening ear when he needed one. And the more I thought about him, friends, the more I realized in that moment what I had to do. I realized I needed to buy an electric car because those don't use oil. Shabbat shalom.